Okay, so this is part two of an interview that I'm doing with Mary Kraus, co-housing architect of decades. And my name is Diane Wiley. I'm on the board of SAGE Co-Housing Advocates, Senior Co-Housing Advocates. And we've been talking about the role of architects in a project, particularly architects who have co-housing experience. So in this second part, where Mary's going to share the kinds of design and architectural related workshops that she does with groups. So Mary, if you want to pick up
Yeah,
where we left off.
where we left off. Yeah, but do you want me to, should I repeat what I said or?
Yeah. No, I
Okay,
would just
start over. Okay, so the design, and I run design workshops as well as other workshops, but the main design workshops are the site design and the common house design. So in the site design, you're looking at how everything is laid out on the site, the buildings, the outdoor spaces, the parking, how is that, gardens, whatever you might have, how is that all laid out on the site? What are your priorities for that? So these are called, as we said in the previous discussion, these workshops are called programming and design workshops. And so programming is, a design program is essentially a list of everything you want, so from the overarching goals to the specific spaces, buildings, rooms, and then the qualities and relationships between those spaces. And so during this workshop, you're coming up with, you're making decisions about what you want those programmatic elements and relationships to be. And then you're also working on design, which is how do those unfold into a design? Because there are various different design solutions that would, address those programmatic requirements. So there's site design is a really important workshop, and then common house design. And there are home designs, believe it or not, are secondary. But the typical series would be 1 or 2 home design workshops. The first one might be the designs of the homes themselves, and the second one might be how they're combined into buildings. And but again, that's less critical. I know in at least one case, I just did a design survey, and the local architect carried the designs forward. I also run workshops on coming up with your vision statement, or even values if I'm working. In the case where I initiated a co-housing group, I actually started with values. Do we have some values here on which to center a group? And we did. So values, vision, the design workshops. And there's also workshops on how to design your work system in community. So, but the design ones, as I said, are site, common house, and units. So what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Would you like me to elaborate a little bit, Diane, on sort of the survey and the whole process as it unfolds, or?
I think you mentioned that, again, I want to reference viewers to hear part one, because you do talk about how valuable it is to pre-survey. Gives people a chance to kind of think individually, and then you come in with the cumulative answers and analysis, which I think is super, super valuable and helpful, and really accelerates the process so people don't get bogged down doing that in real time. The other one question I wanted to ask, and I know you've done group process workshops as well, just helping people think about how to work cooperatively, and you did talk about that in the earlier one, of kind of modeling good facilitation in choice making. And I think that's important too, because we don't come with that skill, so we have to learn it. And I think you, as a co-housing architect, knows how important it is to have good facilitation, good process, clear communication in a group setting, and you help by bringing that skill to not just to the design expertise, but to the communication expertise. So I encourage people to listen to our earlier interview. The last question I would ask is, how groups will navigate once they've done their design, how they are going to square that with their budget. So if they
Right.
come up with a design that a couple of months later they realize they're coming up short,
Right.
How do they navigate that?
Right. I mean, first of all, you try to cut that one off at the pass by starting with, when I'm designing, I'm collaborating with a development consultant, which we touched on in the previous conversation. And so they develop this thing called a pro forma, which shows all of the expenses. Here's what we can charge for, here's what we want to pay for our homes, and here's what it's going to cost for the land, or here's what we think it's going to cost for the land. And, they put all the expenses in there and projections. And yes, those projections do not always carry forth because, you don't know until you get there. But I just want to, before getting to the specific of your question, I just want to say, we also try to cut that off at the pass in terms of knowing ahead of time what the budget's like. So, if we know from the get-go that it's a very tight budget, we're already going to be scaling down the recommendations, say for the individual homes and for the common house, versus what we would do if we know we have a more ample budget. So that's just, that helps the group as we move along. And and you want to do sort of initial broad cost estimates as you go, so you don't get too far off track. But you never know what's going to happen, and sometimes there's a crisis in the middle of a project. I mean, a crisis meaning just the economy changes, or there's a material shortage, or all these things can happen. And so then, yes, then you get together as a group and you prioritize, the kind of process, and there's probably a number of processes you can use, but that the architectural team and the development consultant would get together, and maybe even a design committee might be part of this, and identify some areas where cost savings are possible, some different strategies. And then you as a group, we have a facilitated meeting where you decide which of those strategies are most palatable and come to consensus on them.
That's great. And we're going to do a web chat. I'm going to do a web chat with folks from Quimper Village Senior Co-Housing to talk about what a pro forma is and working with a budget. We're always working with a budget. And I remember I was chairing the Common House kitchen team, and I had a budget of $20,000. Well, how are we going to do a sort of commercial version with $20,000? I was kind of, we were really wringing our hands how we were going to do that. And then it turned out that Amherst College down the road was upgrading their kitchen facilities, and we were able to purchase at reduced cost some of the appliances and some of the, stainless steel surfaces. So that was a great serendipity, I will say. So just like with anything else, we start with a budget, we work our way along the way. The pro forma, which is the budget, does change. There's a contingency, as you know, all budgets will have a 10% or more contingency, and sometimes that gets eaten up and sometimes it gets saved, and then you can finish the patio or, buy a better refrigerator in the common house or whatever. So
yeah. I mean, one thing that I will say about budgeting that your examples are bringing to mind is sort of do now what you can't do later, and prepare for the future. So being smart about what things you can add on later and what things you can't. If it's something that has to do with building a better foundation or more insulated foundation or something, that you can't revamp later, do it now. But something that you can do in the future. I mean, like for instance, in our community, 25 years ago, it wasn't all that affordable to put solar panels on your house, but we prepared for it. And,
right.
So, yeah.
Right. Great. Well, Mary, thank you for doing this quick second parter. Thanks to technology, both of us froze up. So Thank you. And maybe we'll have another chat as the SAGE Senior Co-Housing Advocates puts together its library of video chats. So thank you for being part of
Great.
that.
Thank you.
All right.